Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
The Philadelphia 76ers. I don't know how to describe this team. When you look at their 55 games played so far, they are 34-21. Is that good? Is that bad? 9-19 on the road, 25-2 at home. It's so hard to comprehend what this team is. There are some things that frustrate the living hell out of people. There are some things that are promising that should leave you optimistic. We don't know, and I guess that's the confusing part about this team. But I thought it was so confusing and it's so interesting that I would ask the question, how do you rate the first 55 games? On a scale of 1 through 10, 10 being the most satisfied, how do you rate this team? And there were a ton of people texting in, tweeting in, and even leaving comments on the YouTube community page on my Sports Talk with Broads channel. And I thought it was very interesting to hear the results. And we will get to those results, and we will listen to some phone calls. Before we do, though, we need to hear a word from my sponsor, SeatGeek. Are you looking to buy tickets to an NBA game, an NHL game, or college basketball? Or even a concert. Don't forget about the concerts. If you use the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page, you will receive $20 off. It is a no-brainer to use the promo code BROADS today. So, the Eastern Conference is deeper than we probably would have expected. Did we expect the Miami Heat to be this good? Absolutely not. Did we expect Toronto to keep their pace? Absolutely not. Did we expect the Boston Celtics to be as good as they are, losing Kyrie Irving and putting in Kemba Walker? We expected them to be good, and realistically, I do like the Sixers matchup against that team because of the length of the Sixers, but I don't know if I would have expected them to have the record that they do right now at 38-16. So the point is, my point is, the Eastern Conference is deeper than we expected it to be. But when you look at the way this team is played, when you look at their 34-21 record, I think we would be more satisfied with just 4 more wins. If you swap the Sixers with where the Celtics are, you would be way more satisfied. 38 wins right now, 16 losses. That's completely different from where they are in this particular spot. I don't get too fed up with, well, they won 53 games the year before. They got to win at least 55 games, or if not 56 or 58. No, I don't care. When you're in that 52 and above range, there's no difference to me in winning 52 one year and winning 54 the next. Or if you won 53 one year, you won 55 the next. That doesn't mean anything to me. If you're in that ballpark of 52 plus wins, you're in the ballpark of being a legitimate contender in my eyes. There's always going to be that one team a season like the Milwaukee Bucks who are 56-8. That's all great. And there's value in that because of home court advantage and things of that nature, absolutely. But that doesn't mean anything when it comes to the playoffs besides the home court advantage. Everything gets wiped away, though. You can easily still lose. There's always going to be one team. That means nothing to me. My point is, I give this team, my answer out of 10 is 6.5, because I think that's disrespecting them enough, yet it's respecting them enough. Their home record is literally insane. 25-2 is so good. I mean, so good isn't even doing it justice. For as pathetic as 9-19 is on the road, that's the same thing when it comes to how good they are at home. One is so pathetic and one is so unbelievable. It's an extreme on both sides. But you can't not give them credit for doing that at home. It's not, well, they're supposed to be that good at home. Not this good. So I looked through their season, their schedule, their results. And they have put together some decent stretches of basketball and some decent wins. For example, there was a stretch of Toronto, Denver, and Boston. Bang, 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 3 W's in a row. That's great stuff. They beat Boston 3 or 4 times this season. That's great stuff. They beat the Miami Heat. They beat Milwaukee on Christmas Day. Now, some of those wins, specifically I'm thinking of the Milwaukee Bucks game, there's something that occurs which doesn't really define the team. For example, they shot lights out from three, something that they don't statistically do. So it's somewhat flawed that they won that game because they made so many threes, and that's an unrealistic thing to imagine will occur every time they play. That's fair. That is absolutely fair. That's why I think that Clippers win right before the break was so impressive. There wasn't anything that stood out as, wow, that's so out there. That's not what this team is, except for the 6 turnovers as a whole. But going back to that Milwaukee Bucks game, while I do agree that there's something to be said about having such an outlier stat pop out at the end of the game, if that occurs in the playoffs in a best-of-7 series, that doesn't get taken away. If the Sixers beat the Bucks and shoot 70% from three, and of course that's very ridiculous, but bear with me here, it's not like they're not up 1-0 in the series because, well, that's not really who this team is. So you can't take that away, but I understand the logic about it. I do. But in a playoff series, they're not going to take away a victory if you do something you normally don't do. So some other big wins. There was a Pacers-Utah back-to-back game. Not back-to-back in terms of playing one game one night and the next night it's the other game, but in terms of having those two opponents on their schedule in games consecutively. The Pacers are a good team. Utah is a good team. They have good wins. But with that being said, they have really bad losses. The Miami loss in overtime. They fell apart. It came down to the wire. Things got ugly. It looked like the struggling Sixers we have seen in the past when it comes to big moments. Toronto consistently losing in that building. And I've been on the record before that this whole regular season stat against Toronto where they can't beat Toronto in Toronto, where they have this consecutive losing streak in the regular season in that building, why does the playoffs not count? Like, why? It's harder to win in the playoffs on the road than it is in regular season. Why would that stat just not count a playoff win? Ridiculous to me. The worst stretch of them all, though, was the one that just occurred, and it was so bad and so pathetic that I would have reacted emotionally as a GM. I would have had an instant reaction and snipped the coach. It's the loss to Atlanta, Boston, Miami, Milwaukee in ugly fashion where you're giving up 120-plus points to the team like Atlanta. You give up 130-plus to a team like Miami. Your squad looks defeated. They look like they don't feel like playing. I'm out there. I'm out on that 4-game trip. I would have fired the head coach. It got that ugly. Sometimes you need an emotional, reactionary pull to wake the fellas up, and I would have done it in that moment, no doubt about it, if I was Elton Brand. He did not elect to do it. He's been supporting Brett Brown to the media recently, so it is what it is. There was also an Orlando, Miami, Indiana, and Houston stretch where they looked awful. The reason I'm bringing these stretches up is it kind of just describes this team as a whole. They have a really good road record. I'm sorry. No, they do not. No, they do not. They have a really good home record. They have a really bad road record. And when you look at these games that I'm mentioning throughout the regular season, you can see the inconsistency, and that's why I give this team a 6.5. A 7 is giving them too much justice. Although I do think 6.5 is a little bit more on the disrespectful side, but I lean towards the disrespectful side when judging their 55 games because they have underachieved. They have not played as good as we expected. They are in the 5th seed. They're only 1.5 out of the 4th. A couple games out of the 3rd. The 1st and 2nd, to me, seem very unrealistic, and I don't even know if they can get to the 3rd because making up games is so much harder than you think in this league. it's just so hard to judge the squad because you know deep down they're good. You know that gut feeling in your stomach when you see them beat the Clippers, when you see them play their best basketball, you know it is really good basketball. It is a team that can legitimately contend. You just don't get that on a nightly basis, and that is what a difference between a great team and a good team, and that's what we're going with right now. Some of it is immaturity as a player, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. I haven't really been satisfied with Joel as a whole. Ben, I have been satisfied with everything in his game except for the lack of the jumper, which is a big hole in his game. But I don't love the narrative that he hasn't gotten better. He hasn't taken jump shots in a game, but he has gotten better. That's obvious to me. Super obvious to me, actually. Here's a crazy stat, by the way, that I saw on The Athletic, which Derek Bodner wrote this article, and it dates back to NBA.com. And this is how they got the stats. With Ben, Joel, and Al Horford on the floor, their offensive rating when it comes to 100 possessions is 98.8. When you look at the 10-win Sixers team in 2015 and 16, their offensive rating was 98.4. Isn't that ridiculous? That is so crazy to even process. Now, with Simmons and Al Horford on the floor, it jumps up to 111.2. With Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid on the floor, it jumps up to 110.6. So with those three on the floor, offensively, it is a big-time struggle. Now, with the NBA.com stats, they do take out garbage time. So mathematically, when it's a big blowout and things of that nature and how much time is left on the clock, they put that into the statistics. But regardless, however they do it, that is telling you something. Now, defensively, they are a good basketball team. This isn't saying that Al Horford is a bad player because he has tremendous value. Just schematically with those three players, it's a tough find. It's a tough fix. It's hard to get them rolling at the same time. But that doesn't mean there's no value in Al Horford's game. He will play a big role on this team. Absolutely. And this whole coming off the bench thing, they both logged 28 minutes. Now, in the playoffs, it's going to be different because Joel is going to play a lot of minutes, and you'll have to find ways to utilize it and make it happen. But I think it will. And I think the optimism for this team moving forward should be there because this does change the whole dynamic of the squad. With the acquisitions that occurred at the trade deadline, there are a ton of options moving forward. So, let's hear from you. And we will start on Twitter because there were a ton of responses. And we will start with @FlyPhillyFly2. He claims an optimistic 6.5 out of 10. The Sixers need to understand what makes them great. Bully ball, smothering defense, which needs to be maintained on the road, and being aggressive and drawing fouls. I think this is a great way to describe it because the 6.5 describes what they have been over 55 games so far, but you're optimistic because you know that there has been a big change. It kind of sucks because the change happened, the Sixers beat the Clippers, and then, hey, we're taking a break. You're going to have to sit on this. You're going to have to hope and expect and pray something to be completely different for the long run. You're not going to get it in 2 nights. You're not going to get a game the next night. You're going to have to wait a bunch of days until you see this team compete on the floor once again. So it just sucks that as soon as we see something different, we need to take time off and think about the possibilities in our brain. But I really do like the way that @FlyPhillyFly2, described this. Being optimistic, but still basing the 55 games at 6.5. I love it. I really do. @TD9116. 5. Good at home, bad on the road. It's just that simple. See, 5 to me is too low. That's like you're just looking at the road record and not giving them enough credit for the home record, they are 34-21, which is not embarrassing by any means. 5 is kind of like, and I think that they are better than even though they have been a really annoying team to watch and inconsistent. They're better than just average. They are annoying to watch, no doubt. Sometimes they are tough to watch. But 5 is too disrespectful to me. Kevin Nunes, 7, because of the latest developments, which I honestly feel give us hope in terms of spacing and offensive success. Josh Richardson stepping up as a leader and Embiid being himself should make this a better end of the year, and we had one of the hardest schedules missing some of our guys. So you gave them a 7 so far this season, and you're looking ahead while grading that. So it's somewhat skewed the way that I read that tweet off. I don't know if I can go as far as a 7. I do know this. You make great points when it comes to looking ahead. It's crazy what that one game does, because if they say that game against the Bulls that just happened where they beat the Bulls, but it wasn't really impressive and it looked like they just went through the motions. If that was the last game before break, the conversations are not even close to what they are now. The monster change by Brett Brown to put Al Horford on the bench leaves the Sixers fan base with a totally different mindset, with so much thoughts. And it's wild because it's not how it has been all season long. This monster change, it opens the door. The sea spreads apart. You can do so many different rotations, so many different starting lineups, implementing different players at the 3, maybe even moving around what's going on with Embiid and putting Al Horford in and then changing the 3. And it's so much. It's so much. And the anticipation is crazy. At Cody Busby 10. I think I've been at about a 6. Seeing them only lose 2 at home after 55 total games is phenomenal. But I can't help but get discouraged when we lose so many games on the road. What's also been discouraging is not really seeing any moves being made rotation-wise. And that kind of just mentions what I just talked about. Throughout 55 games, you're right. It took Brett Brown, all over the place here. I'm sorry. Get it together, bros. It took 55 games for Brett Brown to pull the trigger. But I have defended Brett Brown, saying this isn't an easy roster decision to make. To put this guy on the bench, this veteran professional who's getting paid over $100 million, to slap him on the bench, that's not something you just do when things are struggling. It has to be clear and evident that this is a much needed, insane move that had to happen. You can't just do it because it looked ugly for a little bit of time. It had to get to this extent before pulling the trigger, and he ultimately did. So a 6, I'm in that ballpark as well. At Jake_Vid, 7 and rising. Graded on a harder curve due to the individual talents. All right, so he's not being as harsh as I am. A curved grading system? I want to know what this curve is. What's the curve? Just based off of individual talent, huh? See, I don't go that way because it's not about individual talent for me. I know what Joel Embiid can/should be. I know what Ben Simmons can/should be. Are they that? Are they that every single night? No, they're not. So just because they have the talent, I'm going to curve it because they're not utilizing the talent? I don't know. I don't see it that way. AJ Smith says 7, and mostly because of the home dominance. That can't go unnoticed with the teams they have beaten. And at Galdi claims 7 as well. Home play has been fantastic, but not just the record. The level of play on the road has been very disappointing. So he likes what they're doing at home, and he's really disappointed with what's happening away from the Wells Fargo Center. It seems like 5 to 7 is the range most people are going for, and we have some phone calls as well. So I think we should take some phone calls right now.
Hey, bros, I'm a big fan. So on a scale from 1 to 10, I'll rate the Sixers season so far 6.5 or 7 out of 10. I'm really happy with what we've been doing at home. but on the road's been awful. Right, the Cavs on the road. Oh, like the finals team at home. But I feel like after this All-Star break, everything's gonna start clicking. I feel like we're gonna go on a big run and get like a higher seed. After we can get Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson mixed into the rotation, I feel like everything will be a lot better. So yeah, I feel like at the end of the year it might be like a 9, 8.5. We'll see. Thanks for having me.
Like, I'm laughing because it's crazy. It dates back to what I said about this team's mindset right now. Not the team, the fan base as a whole. Things change that quickly, huh? One win against the Los Angeles Clippers because Al Horford is no longer in the rotation, and you're getting different looks, and you're getting different offensive rating numbers when Al Horford's off the floor, and you just have Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, or you just have Ben Simmons and Al Horford. You're not wrong to be that optimistic. I've stated it from the jump. You can see what this really does for this team, and you can see what someone like maybe Glenn Robinson III can do, his instincts of just playing the game of basketball, cutting at the right times, and shooting a decent percentage from three. There's a lot in his repertoire that he can totally provide for this team. Like, he's got a good skill set. He can definitely be like a spark plug in that rotation. Matisse Thybulle, if it's Furkan's type of night, he can have a 30-plus point performance and be someone who's unafraid to shoot at any spot on the floor if it's one of those games. If it's not one of those games, then we know it's time to yank him and sit his ass on the bench. I just laugh. I laugh hearing all of these people say, oh, he even said at the end, maybe it's an 8. Maybe it's a higher number for the backstretch of the season, just because of Al Horford.
What's up, bros? I think this season we've been about to get 8. Because at home we're phenomenal. We beat some of the best teams in the league, all above 500 teams, beat all the top 6 teams in the East. Our way record needs to get better, though. We need to have a better way record so we can get home court advantage. Because I think in the playoffs, all we need to do is win like 1 or 2 home away games throughout the whole playoffs, and I think we can make it to the finals. Because I don't think we can be beaten at home, so, yeah, let me know what you think.
The one thing I'll say about that is, a lot of people do say, well, all you need to do is win 1 or 2 road games. Because it doesn't always get to 7. I don't like the debate, well, they're going to have to win Game 7 on the road. Well, it's not true that every series goes to Game 7. It's possible the Sixers win at 6 at home, right? Why does it have to always go to 7? It doesn't. With that being said, even though the Sixers are amazing at home, it is possible for them to lose a home game as well. But it's possible that they can win 2 road games during the playoffs. Like, crazy things happen in sports. You never know what's going to occur. The Nationals won the World Series last year after starting out miserable. Like, crazy things can happen. You just don't know. So to just write off all the home games as wins during the playoffs, I can't do that. To just write off all the away games for the Sixers, I can't do that either. You straight up just don't know what will happen when the moment occurs, when that time actually happens, when it's under a minute left in a basketball game. The Sixers are up 2. They got to come up with a big defensive stand, and somehow Joel Embiid gets a huge block, or Matisse Thybulle by the perimeter gets his hands in the cookie jar and he sends Ben Simmons down the other way. Or we could even go the opposite. The Sixers need a bucket. They're down 1. What ends up happening? Ben Simmons drives the lane hard. He gets fouled. What's he do? He hits both free throws in another opponent's building and shuts up the crowd. I'm getting the goosebumps just thinking about it. Going back to the score he threw out, though. 8, huh? 8. Wow, that's high.
What's up, bro? This is Tad calling from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And so far, I'd give the Sixers season about a 6 because it's like night and day with the home and road record. Everyone sees it. You know, the best home record in the NBA, but you're horrible on the road. It's like night and day. We have an extremely talented squad. A head coach who at times doesn't utilize players correctly, but you see games on the road where the defense is inconsistent. Our star players, especially Joel and Ben, not putting in efforts at times, and you go home and it's like they flipped a switch. The energy's high, the crowd's loving it, and you know it's like night and day. It's like we flipped a switch.
You mentioned flipping the switch, and that's what somewhat keeps me involved in this playoff run. And you're saying flip the switch in terms of what they do on the road compared to at home, and that's not wrong at all. I think of it more as when they play their best compared to when they don't feel like competing. When they do flip the switch, which will happen in the postseason because the moment's big, because it's on bigger TV platforms, because it's for the NBA championship run, that switch will be flipped for the most part, so we expect. So when they are willing to compete, they are at the top of their game. And that's why I have more hope than most when it comes to this team making a serious run. But at the same time, I do have a gut feeling that says, Broads, I understand what you're saying, but I don't know if they have enough yet, and I don't know if they are mature enough yet as players when it comes to Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, because for the 10th millionth time, this season, this squad, this organization right now goes through two people. And guess what? They can play together. I promise you they can play together. I hate that narrative. A couple more. Joey Beatty says, I'll give them a 7 because they don't have a decent coach and they're still figuring things out and beat really good teams. They don't have a decent coach. Doesn't fly with me. I think they do have a decent coach. They might not have the best coach in the world, but he doesn't get enough credit for what he does do, and he only gets destroyed for what he doesn't do. Chuck Pistacchi says, I'd rate the 76ers' first 55 games as 5 out of 10. So inconsistent. Their road record was pitiful, and they just based it on, and if they just base it on road games, well, we know it's a poor showing for a very talented team. Well, Chuck, you can't just put it to the road games. You can't. That's not fair. Why are you not giving them credit for what they did at home? It's just as impressive as how poor their road record is. DeForest Greg hits us with, the Philadelphia 76ers will win the 2019-2020 NBA championship. Now, I want that. I want that type of feeling. He's straight up just saying it. He made it a statement. He put a period at the end. There's a dot there. They are going to win the 2019-2020 championship. Period. All right. Ethan, I would rate them 5 out of 10. Brett Brown has no game plan for this basketball squad when they are on the road. If the Sixers don't make the playoffs this year, I say fire Brett. If they don't make the playoffs, they're making the playoffs after the 6th seed. It's not even close. For example, Milwaukee, 46-8 in the first seed. Then you have Toronto, Boston, Miami, Sixers, Pacers, and from there, it's not even close. The 76ers are making the playoffs, unless Ethan meant if he doesn't make the finals, right? I mean, you would think he meant the finals, but he said the playoffs. If the Sixers do make the playoffs but lose 4 games at any point, fire him anyway. I don't think Ben Simmons necessarily needs to shoot a 3 or shoot at all, but he should attempt a couple more jump shots just to throw people off. I'm feeling a little disconnected from that comment, Ethan. I don't know if I necessarily see eye to eye with where your mindset is, and that's just how I say it. Now, here's a no-name. For me, it's a solid 4. The most disappointing part is that both Ben and Joel haven't shown much of progress in their game, especially Joel. If Joel keeps playing soft like this in the playoffs, we stand no chance. I do not believe that they did not get better. Like, this whole Ben thing didn't get better. I'm not buying it. Did he shoot jump shots this year? No, he did not. Do you see him outside of the game knocking down shots with better form and more consistent than ever in his career? Yes. That means there is a mental block because he is capable of doing it. I totally understand where Ben is at. But to say that Ben Simmons never put the work in this year, that's not true. And also, he is now an elite defender. He passes the ball even better than he has previous years. He has done better. He has developed his game. In terms of Joel Embiid, it's a it's not a skill set problem. Like, he didn't get better skill set wise. It's more just mentally. Both right now. It's a mental thing, not so much a physical thing, which is still part of the equation, no doubt. I'm more disappointed in Joel. I will agree with you on that, but I can't say that 4 out of 10 is where I stand after breaking down 55 games. We will read just a couple more here. Adam Paul also believes 5 out of 10. J-Bar, injuries and the lack of cohesiveness have plagued the Sixers. I give them a 6 out of 10 with the new additions, and Ben and Joel playing together should make a strong, deep playoff run. Now, I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's names, but I can see where you're going with that. I don't know if I do agree with the lack of cohesiveness. The injuries, I don't know if I'm going to ride and die with the injury part. I do understand that sometimes Josh Richardson's not playing. Al Horford's on the bench. Embiid is getting rested. There's not a ton of starting 5 going on throughout the whole season, and that has been something I've discussed many times now. The lack of cohesiveness is something to talk about. It keeps dating back to this, but that's how important it is. With the Al Horford move, possibilities are endless. And we will end with this right here from Luciano Martinez. I'll go with 7 out of 10. People got to understand we went toe-to-toe with the best this season so far, beating the Bucks, the Lakers, and then the Clippers. I understand the horrible away record, but take in consideration that when push comes to shove, I'm sure we can steal an away game. If we play the way we did versus LA, then I'm sure we can do it. But as I said, if. That's what the Sixers have been so far, and we will go as far as Embiid and Simmons. Yup. Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. I can't wait for this to end. And when I say this, I'm talking about the All-Star break. I need basketball. I'm itching. I'm itching at night, staring at the ceiling, pitch black, itching myself. Basketball, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, I need it. I miss the sport. I need it. And I know the All-Star game is going to have both of them in it, but it's not the same thing. I need hoops. I need real hoops. I'm watching college basketball. That gives me my fix, but it's not the same because I don't have a team that I cover to this degree in college hoops. I like Villanova. I like Jay Wright. I like the team he built. I like what he brought to the table as, I was going to say an organization, but that's not really the way it feels in college basketball. I guess I'll say I like the culture he built, but it's not the same way. I like Big 5 basketball, but it's not the same. I need Sixers ball. I do. So let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I will see you next time.